other position battles that you can look at, this tight end spot, this is one that I think needs to get more conversation. You've seen Jake Ferguson. That's your safe starter. I think Brevin Spanford is your safe tight end too at this point. Granted, he's missed a lot of time with injury, but I think the confidence has been built there. He's safe on the roster with or without a preseason appearance on Friday. Tight end 3 is where things are really up for grabs, I think. You have Luke Schoonmaker, who exited practice a couple days ago, got dinged up, did not practice yesterday. We'll see if he plays tomorrow. Another guy that is really starting to factor into the conversation is Rivaldo Fairweather. In 12 personnel packages with Schoonmaker off the field, it has been Fairweather, not John Stevens, not Princeton Fant, which I would have guessed either of those two guys before Fairweather. But Fairweather has really started to factor into the conversation. Do you have any opinions on this last tight end spot on the roster, John?
It's going to be interesting. I could understand why Fairweather is playing for a spot, because he's honestly been one of the players that really burst onto the radar based on his preseason performances. I made the joke here. I didn't know that he even existed really before the first preseason game, and he did that toe tapper touchdown that was so beautiful. So it's interesting. That tight end 3 spot is a lot like the running back 3 spot. A big reason you might make the rosters for things that don't have to do at all with playing tight end. It's doing special team stuff. It's making an impact elsewhere. So it's going to be interesting. I still think that the draft capital used to acquire Luke Schoonmaker is going to make it awfully difficult. Somebody is going to have to obviously have outplayed him, I think, to make the roster, because any ties are going to go to him just because of the money that's tied up into his contract. But, I would not – it would not shock me. It would mildly surprise me if he was beaten out by, by Fairweather, or maybe John Stevens bursts onto it, or Princeton Fat makes a surprise, something like that. But, I wouldn't be shocked based on how they played through the first 2 preseasons.
Schottenheimer mentioned earlier in the week that he's seen some of the 53 projections that are out there. He's like, I think there's going to be some surprises to you guys. And when I went back and looked at the roster, Schoonmaker was the first name that kind of jumped to my face. And I'm like, that could make sense. That one could make sense as far as a cut. And all in all, you look at this 2023 draft class, I'm not saying this is likely to happen, but I think there's a reality out there where you get to roster cut down day next Tuesday afternoon, and DeMarvion Overshown is the only one left from that 2023 draft class. You have first-round pick Mozzie Smith. We've talked about him ad nauseum. I think he's playing for a job at this point because he's playing well into the second half of games. Second-round pick in that draft, Luke Schoonmaker, just talked about him. Third round was Overshown. Fourth round was Viliami Fehoko. He's been gone. Fifth round, Awesome Richards, who has completely fallen off a mountain here at training camp and is on life support as far as making the roster.
Second preseason game was rough.
Very, very. And then the only one left in those later rounds is Jalen Brooks, who, oddly enough, I feel more confident in him than any of them to make the roster because he has that special teams value. But it's really wild that's where we're at. TJ Bass was an undrafted free agent, so was Hunter Lipke in that class. Those guys don't count, in my opinion, as far as being part of the draft class. But the draft picks themselves, it's crazy that you could have a reality where you have more undrafted guys from that class still around than drafted guys going into year 3, which is that's bonkers to think about.
And for a team that relies so much on the draft to acquire talent, you just can't have years like that where the entire class outside of 1 or 2 guys is gone within two years. That's just things that cannot happen when you're rely so heavily on one aspect of the player acquisition process.